Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles to the Angelo Robles podcast. I'm also the founder and CEO at Family Office Association. Really excited about today's show. I've been looking forward to it for about a month. 91-year-old grandmother and great grandmother, I will add, and Holocaust survivor on successful families, investing, and of course, Bitcoin. Really excited today to have Eva Haller on. As I mentioned, I'm going to do a longer overview than I normally do because I think it's important for the context. She is a Holocaust survivor, a mother, wife, and grandmother and great grandmother, an activist, and a philanthropist. She also has adopted several daughters, grandchildren, and extended family members along the way. With the support of her wonderful husband, Eva Haller, Eva has worked her magic bringing people together, resources, and media to grow ideas into working solutions that serve millions of people around the world. Eva was born before the Second World War in Budapest, Hungary. Her family exposed her to art, music, and the love of culture and country. When the Nazis invaded Hungary, Eva was placed in a Scottish boarding school in Budapest. Jane Haining, the headmistress of the school that was sheltering Eva and other Jewish children, was captured by the Nazis. She was the only Scottish woman to be murdered in Auschwitz. Eva escaped the concentration camp by convincing a young Nazi soldier that she was much too young and beautiful to die. The soldier told her to run, and she escaped only to return for a young boy that she had been asked to care for. When she returned, Eva explained that she forgot something, grabbed the boy's hand, and ran. And I suppose never looked back. Eva, it's an honor to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
It is a pleasure to be here with you, and I am very eager to answer your questions because you really spent time, energy, and effort to know who I am, to know what you want to ask and what you hope to get out of this meeting, both for me and for your audience. So I'm grateful. You are a great connector. You are a man that I respect without knowing you yet, and I think I will respect you even more after today.
Let's hope that I don't let you down, but thank you for your kind words. I don't think I've ever had someone on where I could read and open like that. And that includes in my physical events where I've interviewed many prominent people, more so in the world of finance, but also philanthropy and politics over the years, that has overcome the challenges that you've overcome. What is it inside you at such a young age when I just described you must have been a teen? How did you have that in you, that fight for survival, that going back and rescuing the young boy? What was that born, or did you learn that?
Well, there are two things there. I figured my parents would kill me if I show up alone wherever they are without bringing that little boy, and I really did want to stay alive. So I had a sense of responsibility because I was given the responsibility. But mainly, to answer the first question, many of us are born with a survival instinct. I think we all are. Humanity would not have survived if it wouldn't have survival instinct. Some of us have more than others, and some of us develop it more than others. I think that there is a noise here that I really don't want, but I don't know how to turn it off.
It will stop ringing. It's nice music, though.
No, but I have it on non-existent, so I don't know how. Honey, please make it go away. Sorry. Uh, what 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 really is happening with human beings is that when you present a challenge, uh, the survival instincts start working. It's like a muscle, and you have to. We all have it. It is just question of developing it when you need it. Most of us don't have to uh, be faced with Nazi soldiers. Most of us don't have to face with hunger in America, in our middle class people. So therefore, we don't have to find those muscles until maybe later in life when some sadness or tragedy occurs, or when you want to become an Olympic runner. Again, there is something in us that gets motivated, the motivation of survival. And I think that we are very much blessed when we are able to use those muscles that we were all born with.
And it mentions in the open that your parents instilled in you a love of art, music, culture, and country. How did that play into your survival instinct? You were so young that I'm sure you wanted to experience those things through a lifetime and not have it come to an end right there. That must have helped to push you along the way.
You know, I was very lucky to be born into a family that felt themselves to be uh, very Hungarian. It was the assimilation that happened during and after the Habsburg era. We were all in a position to feel that this is our country, we belong here, we are going to always be here. And it took a long time before we realized that our country doesn't want us. And once that happened, we became isolated. And then once that they came after us to take us to the camps to kill us, it was like a sense, first of it was a sense of betrayal. We love our country. Why doesn't our country love us? And I think that that carries you forward forever. And then when we are fortunate enough, and I was fortunate enough by the age of 22 to come to this country, to feel wanted, helped, respected, and really given me the sense that I'm relevant here. I can do something for which I will be appreciated and not threatened and not killed and not diminished. And so I have lived these many years from the age of 22 to 91 and a half with a deep sense of motivation to give back all or some the marvels that America has given me. And so I think that is what there's so many strands, Angelo, in life that motivate you. There's never one. There's so many people who motivate you, who have accepted you, who are caring for you. There are so many different opportunities that come your way. There is so many different strands in life that create the augmentation of that survival instinct into motivation, into gratitude. And I think and this is a very long answer to your short question, but I think gratitude is one of the nurturing emotions we all have for because gratitude means that we recognize an opportunity, or we recognize a gift, we recognize a life that we have. And when that happens, it just becomes a miracle of being here.
You know what happened, obviously, in Austria, Germany, and you mentioned in Hungary during that terrible time in history. I don't mean to make it a political conversation, but I have successful families that love America. And whether they're on the more Democratic, Republican, liberal, or conservative side, and some of them have asked me, because I do some consulting work for families, to explore fluidity around the world, residency, second and third and fourth citizenship. It's a project that I'm working on now. And I asked them why. And they say they saw what happened with the prior president. And again, I skew to being probably conservative. So there's some elements that I agreed with and others that I didn't. But they saw elements that reminded them that things could go wrong even here in the United States. Civil forfeiture, confiscation through taxation, people feeling that they're not a part of the system and they're rebelling against it. There are things that could go wrong. How do we guard against that?
I think that activism is truly our obligation. When we see something wrong, we have to speak up, we have to vote, we have to congregate, we have to recognize in each other the areas where we have to speak up. And it's again not a Democrat and not a Republican. It's human rights, it's human dignity, and what we owe to all of our brethren. I think that when you see homelessness, when you see hunger, when you see educational lack of opportunities, you become activist. And again, it's not a political activism, it's a civic activism that I advocate and I believe in, because once you put labels on who you are, is a division. You don't want to divide yourself from others. You want to be joined together for something that is important to you. And you know, it might not even be in your own country. It might be in Africa, in Asia. It might be wherever it is, where in Sudan or wherever, when you see starving children, you have an obligation to see what can I do to save one life? What can I do to make life better and different? And as we said earlier, you know, once you realize that when you give, you are really taking. Once you are giving, you are really doing it because it makes you feel good, makes you feel powerful. Hey, I've done that. I was able to get education to a number of kids, or I was able to make mothers have an opportunity to learn how to have their own milk. You know, there are little things that can make such a difference in life. And I also think that it's a very selfish thing to give, because in my family, well, most of my family were killed by the Nazis, but that is not really the issue. I think the really, please excuse me, your honey. I don't quite know. I was asked to be all alone here, but I have a very large and very active family, and so I apologize.
No, it's all good. I mean, during COVID, we saw by the police a murder, which was convicted as such, of George Floyd, and
Yes.
racism that has occurred for decades. We could argue, has it gotten better over the decades? I suppose it has, but it still systemically is there. When you see a uprising, and some people will call it civil unrest, which I won't disagree with totally, but areas pertaining to doing the right thing, to, if you're quiet about it, then nothing ever happens to positively change it. This must be something that you feel a common thread and bond with. Even today, it's been what, 70 plus years from what you went through.
You know, when I came to this country, I had a visa for 6 weeks, and then I remained as an illegal alien. I cleaned houses, and it took quite a few years before um, I got a student visa, went to school. But the one thing that made home for home was in the 60s, uh, to march, the Women's March on Fifth Avenue, though they accused us that we only marched because we want to look at the shop windows of Saks Fifth Avenue, which was really not the case, maybe a little. But being in Washington at every one of the demonstrations, going to Selma, Alabama, having the incredible opportunity of Martin Luther King in my life. You know, there was so much power given to this little illegal alien, this little immigrant, to feel that I am living in a country where I can express my feelings, my opinions, and where I count. So, you know, it was the opportunities to express that were very, very meaningful and retained and remained in my life. And of course, because of that was the example, I took my son with me to the Selma Montgomery March. He was 13. Uh, in our family, my kids, their kids, and hopefully my great grandkids, I don't yet know, they are much too young to be called civil rights activists at the age of 7. I guess you have to wait a little longer. It is a remarkable opportunity to be an American.
Absolutely. And you beat me to the punch on one of my questions in terms of when you came here, and that was a great story. You ended up having an amazing family. How did you meet your husband?
Well, I had several husbands, so I don't think we want to go through all of them. Um, there was a first in Ecuador where I landed after the war in 1948. It was very difficult after the Nazis to be occupied by the Soviets, and the whole era and area of life after my brothers were murdered. And I was 15, and it was unbearably painful not to have my brothers and my family been so destroyed. um, I had the opportunity to go to Ecuador where my aunt and uncle escaped from Nazis. And that was a difficult period in a small village in Ecuador where they didn't yet have electricity. And I came from Budapest, where even though we didn't have much food, we did have the opera, we did have the theaters, we had the museums. And I was an 18-year-old, very sophisticated young woman discussing Freud and Mozart and all kinds of things that were natural to our group of people because we didn't have much food and we didn't have many opportunities to travel, but we could read books and we could listen to records. And I think I heard Mozart's Don Giovanni 36 times. And today I can sing the whole thing with no voice of my own, every word in Italian of the magic flute or whatever. So we had a level of culture which was very important because that's all we had. And then in Ecuador, there was no such thing, and my family was not able to provide. Anyhow, I did marry an Ecuadorian, a very lovely young man who was an Air Force guy. But it really, we didn't have very much in common. And culturally, it was difficult because I was raised as an equal to any man and any woman. Uh, I don't talk about not Nazi or non-Nazi, but within our circles, we were equal. And uh, the Latino men in the generations of the 1940s, 50s was not exactly interested or caring or understanding where I came from. So I had a lovely son born and realized that this is not going to work out for the child or for me, and hope that by going to America, if I can get there, I can establish a life that would be similar to what my dreams have been as a child. And thus, I got to America with my 6 weeks visitor's visa, which was in 1952. And now in 2021, I'm still here.
That's an amazing story from Hungary to Ecuador to, I believe what you said when you were 22 in terms of coming to the United States. Uh, how would you, it goes back to my first question, and to you it does seem so natural, like everyone could be doing it, but your ability to overcome obstacle after obstacle and to have that drive and passion. goals and a vision that you had. How do you maintain that when things are not going your way?
I don't think that that ever happens, because so often things, and then with age, there is sickness, there is loss, there is sadness. But somehow you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, what am I going to do today? What are my plans? How do I validate and get the energy to feel that I'm relevant, that my existence has a meaning to me? And that's how you open your computer, and there is always at least 20, 30 new messages about things that are happening somewhere in the world where you are involved, or from your family or from your grandkids. And and it brings you into, it always brings you into the reality. And reality is good and bad, but make it gooder than better. Think of the privilege of still being here. uh, it is really, maybe I'm at what you would call a Pollyanna, but I think it's better than not being.
I would agree. It beats the alternative.
It sure does.
Ava, what makes a good parent?
That's hard. To be a good parent means to relinquish your authority. I think it's very important to uh, be respectful of your child, to hear your children. One of the olden days, there was a psychiatrist who said, listen with your third ear. Listen with your third ear. Listen to who and what your child is and where your child wants to go, and support it. And I think that parenting is having respect. The first word that comes out of a child is usually no. And the word no was learned by the child from the parent. No, you can't do this. No, no. But if you don't use the word no, but allow experimentation and gentle cautioning without using the word no, then the child is not going to use it. And you are opening doors that way to each other. Maybe the word should be perhaps.
Can stifling a child keep them from their potential, even when perhaps they're already successful or perceived as such from an outside world? In other words, when they're younger, too much meddling, too much looking to influence. I think you hinted at it at your prior answer, but I wanted to position it a little differently.
You are positioning it perfectly, because as a parent, you have so many opportunities to stimulate or to stifle. You have both opportunities. But basically, you want to stimulate the child to feel good about experimentation, good about relating, good about not feeling careful, or not feeling good about relating to other people. Experimentation will then give you opening doors to other people, opening doors to professions, or opening doors for satisfaction, which you can't have unless you experiment. And the experimentation has to be by yourself, not by your parent. You have to feel, not feel by they're telling you what you're supposed to feel. And it's wonderful to watch kids when you give them the opportunity to open up, to it's like blooming, like blossoming. A flower is like what you see in a child at almost any age. We have grandchildren, great grandchildren who are 6 months, 1 year, year and a half. They're just starting to walk. They're just starting to not fall and walk and look triumphant. Hey, look, I took 4 steps. Wow! To celebrate what the kid can do. And therefore, you open it up so much to the world, to their world.
Of course. How would, and the positive and negative of schooling, how do we teach children to think for themselves, to make their own decisions and not rely on everything that came out of a textbook or the opinion of others?
That's a very important question that you are asking. I belong to a board of an organization called News Literacy Project, where what we are trying to accomplish with young people is to make up their own mind, not to accept what they see on Facebook or wherever they see it. Because unless you know and understand reality and accept fake news, accept unreality, you know, we have this example today of 70 million people who are not vaccinated because they accept fake news, they accept facts that are not factual. Uh, this is dangerous. We are creating not only two separate societies, but we are creating sickness in an entire society where those who believe in fake news can affect and infect an entire society. So, your question is very, very relevant. How do we have the responsibility to keep our young ones on the straight road, not necessarily by saying to them, but this is what it is, but experiment, examine, learn, think, relate, write. Writing is very good. And it is very important that by encouraging our young ones to make up their own minds, we are helping them, we are giving them their whole future that way. The greatest gift we can give to our young ones is to encourage their independence.
I completely agree. How should, and this ties in, how should grandparents foster a grandchild's development?
You are now coming to the important point where I had to learn things that I had no intention of learning. You see, you see, uh, and that gets us to the bitcoins at some point. But you know, it is really so terribly important to learn the language of young people. You know, it is, they have new experiences. We have the social media. There was no social media when I was growing up or when I was middle aged or even in my old age. You know, all these things are new. And so, what should we do? Should we have again divided societies where we can't talk to our grandchildren and great grandchildren by not understanding who they are and what they are looking towards? Yeah, well, we do have to figure out what are they interested in. So I found out that my 7-year-old great grandson is likes games, and there was a new stock coming out called Go Blocks, and
Roblox, yes.
so I was asking my 7-year-old great grandson about the games that he plays, and I figured, well, how could I get involved with him in his game passion? And so when the stock came out, I said, why don't we buy for 500 or five, whatever, and not a major amount of money, stocks in that company, and you will watch it and you will tell me about it and explain it to me. So every couple of weeks now, we have conversations. He's watching the stock and he said, Grandma, we made $1,000. And isn't that wonderful? And then I would say, okay, that's great. What should we do with the $1,000? Uh, should we take some of that out and give it away? How would we handle this money that we are making? And this gave us a whole new way of not just relating, but creating values and understanding values. And I think that this will go with him, accompany him for the rest of his life. That it's okay to make money, it's okay to make money on things you like, but then what is the value of money? What is the value of your ability to give? To whom do you give? And what is the pleasure of doing so? It's a process.
Indeed, it is. When did you personally start to invest?
I didn't know I was. You see, I think the first $150 that I had, that I didn't need for food and shelter, I bought a piece of art because I missed art. We had art in our home when I was growing up. And then I realized each time I had some money that I didn't need for the things that were important to me, I bought a piece of art. In those days, in the 50s, 60s, uh, you didn't buy a Picasso because it's going to be a good investment. You bought it because you liked it. So it's a very interesting difference between collecting because you love it and you want to have it surrounding you, or you are doing it as if it were a stock or whatever else because it's going to make you money. So uh, it was a marvelous time to collect art, and I enjoyed it enormously and surrounded our lives as I became richer and richer and richer. And that rich doesn't quite mean it in the same way as we mean it today. But as I could afford more and more, I had a wonderful time surrounding us and our family and my children by giving them a piece of art. And then art suddenly became like a commodity, and this was no longer a pleasurable experience. So that's not what we are doing today. And as far as investing, I, even today, you know, it's just like with the Bitcoin stuff, or the cryptocurrency that I do because of my wanting to relate to the kids. So it's not a serious thing, and neither is it serious. My financial advisor calls what I do Eva's cocktail account. Uh, you know, I just started buying things that I thought was fun. And then it turned out that my cocktail account gave more percentage wise incremental income than our financial advisor, who is very, very good indeed. I just had fun doing it. So I'm not a good person to talk about finances in the sense that uh, a good straight planning thing. On the other hand, I did become rich. So I guess maybe I am a good financial person because I made a lot of money. But it usually had to do with emotional things. I love land. I love buying real estate. I love planting. So there were lots of times when things only happened because it would be so lovely to have a piece of land. Well, and then you turn around and the value goes up. So it wasn't meant to be that way. What I'm trying to say that while I became financially very, very comfortable, it was not the intention to become rich. The intention was always the joy of having what I wanted to have, that I thought would be fun to share, that would be a great experience for the family. So it's 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 really that is the truth. And I don't have any wise advice about how to invest or what to invest in, other than try to do it for the fun of it and try to do it in things that have special meaning to you.
And as you invested in art, real estate, and stocks, it sounds like you were a what maybe Warren Buffett would describe as a long-term investor. You weren't looking to get in and get out. Part of this was a passion, and you let time and compounding have its effect, sometimes over decades.
Yeah, but that really had to do with the fact that I lived so long. I mean, I wasn't planning to be 91 and be a multimillionaire. I mean, that was sort of like, uh, it just happened. It's okay. It's again, if I can give any advice to anybody, it is live a life of joy. It really doesn't matter if the market goes down; it will go back up again. And if you buy a piece of land and it doesn't appreciate, enjoy it for what it is. Plant some wildflowers. It's make life light. Lighten up, man. Just lighten up.
I think that's great advice. What led to you investing in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies?
The grandchildren. I'm absolutely uninterested in all of this. And I know about the non-fungible and all the other things that someone else is doing. And I've been asked to get into one of these things that isn't yet coming out, but will be coming out, and all these incredibly esoteric, unreliable things that I probably will get involved in because, again, if the grandchildren do it, I will go along, and it's not a major investment. I don't do that anymore, but it is. What I'm trying to say: do whatever you do, with part of your eyes should be on benefiting the family unity, uh, communication for the family. After all, your passion is family office, right?
Mhm.
You are working for families to work together, to enrich
Yes.
them together, to do it together, to understand together the goals of the financial. And usually there is no such a thing as pure financial relationship. Every financial relationship is an emotional relationship. And it's very important to make it into as pleasant emotional experience as possible, where you agree on the goals, where you agree in the accomplishment, where you agree in the future, right?
I completely agree. In terms of, you mentioned the grandchildren sparked your interest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Did they mention it and bring it up to you, or you were proactive looking to have something in common with them?
I think that it was always being my curiosity about what the kids are doing. I don't think it would be their idea to say, "Hey, Grandma, I discovered urethrium," or whatever, uh, uh, which which I couldn't figure out how to pronounce and called it urethra, and I was told that that's a part of the body. So I had to give up urethra and learn about urethrium. Uh, but one has to learn. My ignorance has been enormous, and it has to do with the joy of finding ways to relate to your family. And if this is what they are interested in, I'm going to find out what it is. I'm not going to get passionate about it. It's not my passion. My interest is communication with the people I love.
That's an interesting perspective that you don't necessarily have a great belief or passion for it. And that brings up the question that I sometimes get is, Angelo, I don't get it. It seems complicated. I actually, when you break it down, it's not that complicated, but I understand from a different perspective, it may look that way. So they have a philosophy, which is not necessarily a bad one. Angelo, I don't invest in what I don't completely understand, but you took a different perspective.
If we only invest in things that we completely understand, then we are not going to invest.
Very true.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, what do we know about the financial statements about any one of the companies or anybody, anything that comes up? We don't. We only know what they tell us and what makes sense to us to understand. But that's never the full picture, and it's not important because that's not what we do for a living. It doesn't influence us that much. I don't have to understand what that is if my main reason for doing it is family communication, is understanding what our grandkids and great grandkids are doing, what their goals are, how they arrive to achieve what they are achieving. That is the goal. And that should be good enough to invest because you are investing in your kids. That's what you are doing.
I have a question on families because I see this. There's a culture of entrepreneurship, of interest, of curiosity. I could hear it in your voice, and I'm sure you pass that on to your children and your grandchildren. How do you treat those that marry into the family from a different background, a different culture? I could argue that could be bad, but I could argue it could be good because they add a different spark and they cause people to think differently. How have you treated that effectively, the in laws?
That's very interesting because you have to start from the point of view that you are the family. Okay? You are a unit, a strong unit. And then somebody new is coming into it. You have to start thinking about it in a very important way. That person must be scared shitless. You know, it's very hard. You are coming into a unit that is well formed or unwell formed, but it's a unit and they are together and I'm entering and I want to belong. It's a human need to belong. You want to belong. So, what do you have to do to make yourself appreciated, loved, and accepted? And on the other hand, at the same time, we have to think about it. This is a person who at this moment is tentative, not knowing how it will work out. But it's clearly important for that person to feel working out because they married into the family. They are coming in to become part of the unit. And the openness and the kindness and the generosity that the family unit has to express is the most vital first step in the family situation, to open the door and say, walk in, we are happy to have you. And you avoid so much headache, and misery if you don't do it that way.
It's excellent advice that hopefully our audience will listen to. Uh, we
Even I
spoke
try to listen to it sometimes.
sometimes. We spoke a little bit before we started to record about philanthropy and giving back, and you had a very unique comment that I've never heard someone from that community mention before. And I know it was a little bit tongue in cheek from some perspective, but selfishness, for lack of a better word. If you could talk about your belief in philanthropy and the value that it provides to society and how it makes you feel.
Well, that is such a joy to be rich. It's terrific. You wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, I really read about this, or I heard about this, or I had a call about this particular situation that I can afford with my money to ameliorate, that I can help a situation. Well, there is no more powerful feeling in the world than your ability to say that I can change something for another person, for another situation. It's fantastic. It makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel relevant and validated. And therefore, when people tell me, I'm doing this to help this or the other, eh, I don't like that because it's not honest. The honest first reason for doing something is to make you feel good and powerful, that you are capable and able to do something good. And so you do it. And I think that basically Americans, particularly Americans, have always been very charitable, much more so than Europeans who came very late in the game of philanthropy. Uh, Americans are willing and caring and sharing much more than any other country that I know of. And I feel so happy that I live here where I feel part of so many philanthropic people. So many of our friends are so deeply involved in charity, in philanthropy, all around the world, not just in America, but they are Americans. And I'm very proud of the country for the philanthropy. You know, if there is a flood somewhere or a disaster in whatever country, it's the United States that is first there, whether governmentally or individually or humanitarianly. It's a terrific place to be.
Related to giving back in charity, as I mentioned, I believe while we were recording, I was introduced to Eva by one of our members in the greater New York area, Kim. Uh, I'm assuming you're on a non for profit together, so I could understand your interest in that non for profit. If you could talk a little bit about that.
I wish Kim would come on and talk about it because we are together on more than one philanthropy. One of them is what I mentioned earlier, the News Literacy Project. The other one, where we are very closely working together, is a, a couple. The woman who was accused of murdering policemen and was on death row, and a man who was accused of the same in Ireland. The woman in Miami, in Florida, and the man. And they were both on death row. And finally, after 15 and 17 years, they were able to prove their innocence. They were nowhere near, nor certainly did not done any of the terrifying things they were accused of. And the two of them met at an Amnesty International speech and fell in love in their 70s and married and started an organization, the Sunny Center, where they have brought in people who were innocent people but were convicted and death row, brought it to their tiny little home in Ireland to help them rehabilitate after they come out of this horrifying. One of them was in jail for 30 years from the age
Wow.
of 16. When by the time they come out, it's amazing that they have any humanity left, but they do and they did. And the number of people who have been saved through the Innocence Project, through the Sunny Center, is really very, very meaningful to us. And Kim and I have been involved with them for from the beginning. Actually, we started the board, the organization. And there is no greater joy than to help in a situation where so much injustice was committed and to work with a dear, dear friend like Kim and do it together. It's a fantastic joy to start something together, to make it work and make it big and make it humanitarianly relevant.
You're active on a significant number of non for profit charitable boards. I was going to say, how do you find the time? But you must have a passion for all of them. Most people would say, focus on one, maybe two. How do you do so many?
I have nothing else to do. I mean, really, truly, every one of the 12 organizations that I've been involved with, I've been involved for many, many years. Uh, some I helped to start, some I was the board chair. But at this point, I don't think I'm a board chair of anything. Probably maybe one or two. But mainly, I'm a board member. I'm mostly a person that I get a call about how to handle this, or would you call that, or what should be our gala, or they are not anymore life and death for the organization kind of questions where we had to have meeting after meeting after meeting. These organizations are now well established that my presence is, some of them they just keep me on because they are kind to me. But some of them, like in the University of California, I've been on that board for the last 36 years. I just figured that they forgot to ask me to leave. But it's good. It's I serve on 4 academic boards. They are very good to have because it keeps me in contact with young people and education. And yeah, it's just been a remarkable life to have organizations like Sing for Hope, where our singers and performers are at Javits Center 8 hours a day performing, so that when people come in for their vaccination, they feel less scared, they relax. And we put the pianos on the streets of New York and now Los Angeles, so people come and can sit down and make music and go to hospitals and schools and perform and make people feel the joy of music. All these organizations are doing something uniquely important to enrich humanity. And what a pleasure. Imagine I can be part of it.
Wow, no, that's well said. Uh, Going back to, I guess, your great grandchildren, I mean, just think of things that are ahead of them with advancements in health and longevity. I don't know, they may live for hundreds of years. They're well educated, they'll have so many opportunities. But I could also paint a picture that is maybe not so rosy. What's going to happen with artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the future of work? Uh, there's positives and negatives relative to what their world will look like in the coming decades to centuries. uh, how do you, I'm not going to say prepare them. We discussed a little bit of that already. Or does history repeat itself?
We don't really know what's going to happen. We are watching what happened so far with artificial intelligence, and most of it has been enriching us. We are watching a lot of work with computers and robots that have been very helpful in the health industry in so many ways. So far, what we have seen is good, is for the good, and it opens up the minds of our children and gives them more curiosity to accomplish more. Yes, there is always the danger what we are doing with the whole social issues of relating more to machines than to people. But I do believe that there is a need for time to adjust to new fields, to new sciences, to new approaches. And I have enormous faith in humankind that we are not going to start creating artificial children with artificial minds that will be better than we are today. I don't think that the human survival instinct will allow us to do to go to the precipice. And if we do, I won't be here to see it.
Well, Eva, this has been tremendous and a great honor for me and everyone. That's Eva Haller, Haller. Really quite an honor, as I mentioned, to have the opportunity to learn from you. Would you have any parting words for our audience among the tremendous wisdom that you already passed on?
Well, first of all, I would like to apologize for the artificial intelligence of our computer that absolutely refused to stop during the interview, and at times took my thoughts away from where they were going to. So I do apologize for that. Other than that, I feel that you have enriched me, that you have given me an opportunity to think about things that I haven't thought about for a while, and validated me in many, many ways, which I'm very grateful for. So I thank you. You are a very deep thinking humanitarian interviewer, a connector. Connect. So you chose a profession where you belong.
Well, it certainly not by intelligence, but hopefully by curiosity and knowing great people like our mutual friend Kim and others that know amazing people and help to connect. It's something that I do enjoy, and hopefully I pass that on as well from my perspective. I do look forward to one day meeting you in person. I
I'll be,
wish you a tremendous rest of the summer and enjoy the time with your amazing family, children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren.
thank you, Angelo. This was really a lovely, lovely meeting. And yes, I would love to see you in person. We will be in New York this fall.
It's awesome. I'll be here. I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great day. Thank you.